Looking back, we have weathered the storms on our journey and emerged stronger because we have adhered to the Shanghai spirit. Looking ahead, we should carry forward the Shanghai spirit in a world fraught with challenges and changes, forge ahead with solid steps, and better tap into the potential of our organization.
India also weighed in on current global issues.
India has emphasized unity in the fight against terrorism. In this, the contribution of SCO nations has been substantial. India took the initiative to fight Al-Qaeda and the terrorist organizations associated with it by leading the joint information operation.
China and India seem to be mending their relations, while the US is acting more antagonistic towards both countries.
Second, we should pursue mutual benefit and win-win results. We need to better align our development strategies and promote the high-quality implementation of the Belt and Road Initiative, so that in planning and building relevant projects together and benefiting from them together, we can strengthen the momentum of regional development and improve the well-being of the people.
Last month, Putin met with the US President Donald Trump, and while addressing the SCO summit, Putin did not miss the opportunity to warn of a global shift.
Russia is one of the key suppliers of natural gas to Turkey. At the moment, the export via Blue Stream and Turkish Stream over the Black Sea flows without interruption.
As the summit drew to a close, it seemed clear that the current geopolitics have pushed China, Russia and India closer together. Bukhali Pele, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Right, those are some of the big stories making international headlines. Let's bring you closer to home with developments from Parliament. The Portfolio Committee on Social Development is currently getting a briefing from the Reserve Bank on the impact of the expiry of the SASSA and Postbank Master Service Agreement at the end of this month. Later on, the committee will also be briefed by the Social Development Department of measures that they've put in place to ensure a smooth transitions. From what I can see, that briefing has just about kicked off. Let's listen.
The advice that I have been given is a valid one, to say since the Portfolio Committee is meeting with the Reserve Bank for the first time, it would be advisable, or it would be good for the members to introduce themselves, just your name, as we always have introduced ourselves. I will start with you, Honourable Abrahams.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to everybody, all protocol observed. My name is Alexandra Abrams. I am a DA Member of Parliament and I am a Western Cape representative also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My name is Polena Mahado from Limpopo, the member of the ANC and also the member of this Portfolio Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. My name is Kiamutsing Steni Ramaila. I have the honor to serve in this Portfolio Committee. I represent African National Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Bishop.
Thank you. Sanbonan, Ikamalam, Bishop Nowetemba, Nsweni, Giseva Committee from MKP, Gabon.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Reverend Lantla Kwabaza from Umkhonto Wesizwe Party. Amen.
Good morning, colleagues, staff, and then that's coming to present here. My name is Paulita Marais. I'm a member of the EFF, representing the EFF. I'm based in Bloemfontein in the Free State, and I'm part of this Portfolio Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Members. I take it that there are no other members. Oh, there is a member at the back there. Over to you, member.
Good morning, it's Member Peters. I represent the Patriotic Alliance and I'm from Johannesburg. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Honourable member, any other honourable member that I may have missed? None. Okay. None. I'll hand over back to you, Lindwe.
Right, apologies for that. It seems, of course, we're still at the introductory stages of that briefing that's certainly going to take place in just a moment. We've been able to see, I suppose, most of the people in that room, given the camera work. But what's also important about what's taking place there, of course, is that the Social Development Department is currently embroiled in quite a saga about a recent trip they took to New York City. And at the center of it, in one way, is Sisi Tolashe, that's the Minister of Social Development, who's also in the room, who has been on the receiving end of quite the salvo from the now suspended communications officer of her department in Mlumka Oliphant, who released her own statement yesterday, essentially taking a swipe at the minister for apparently working towards her own interests and putting things very mildly, given how strongly worded that statement was. It's just something, I suppose, to keep at the back of your mind as we watch that briefing get underway. As soon as we get to the substance of what the Reserve Bank and the Social Development Department is there for, we'll try and bring that to you live. We'll be back in just a moment.
Postbank on the progress made in the official continue with the declarations and responses, and then take over the chair and provide your views with us.
Well, this face looks familiar. Meet Temba again. He's made progress. He manages a car wash now. And remember, he was looking for an older car. Well, he's found one. Now he wants to find the right insurance for his older car. He already knows that Outsurance Essential would fit his pocket. He also knows that claims are paid in cash within 5 days. So he's asking some real Outsurance Essential clients about their experiences.
Nice car.
Thank you.
How long have you had it?
About 4 to 5 years now.
Are you insured?
Yes, with Outsurance Essential. And my premium is only 453 Rand a month. So many people are not insured and it's so risky. And it's so easy to just call Outsurance, get a quote, and you're covered. They gave me that peace of mind that should something happen to my car, they'll be there to help me. And did you know that claims are paid in cash within 5 days?
Many clients also mention that if they ever need to claim, they'll get back on track fast because claims are paid in cash within 5 days. The ability to protect his car against theft and hijacking is reassuring. He visits the Outsurance Essential website and notes that if your car is stolen or hijacked, Outsurance Essential covers the full retail value.
Hello. I see that the trip to the car wash is a fun family outing. It's a busy mom. You must have picked your car insurance very carefully.
Yes, I've been with Outsurance Essential and I only pay 462 Rand per month.
Really?
When I had the accident, after I claimed, I got a cash payout within 5 days and I was able to choose my own panel beater and fix my car.
Timber likes that Outsurance Essential gives him control of the repair process because he can get the repairs done at a panel beater of his choice and at a price that suits him. Outsurance Essential can also assist with finding a panel beater.
Staying hydrated is important. It's just like having car insurance. Who are you insured with?
I'm insured with Outsurance Essential. My premium is 453 Rand a month. If I claim, I get paid out cash within 5 days. Outsurance Essential is the right insurance for my older car.
Temba goes over a final checklist to see if his older car qualifies for essential car insurance. Cars must be over 5 years old, not financed, and worth under 130,000 Rand. He's ready.
Ma'am, who did you insure your car with and why?
I am insured with Outsurance Essential and my monthly premium is only 403 Rand per month. Outsurance call center is always ready to help. Claims are paid in cash within 5 days. If I was involved in an accident and it was my fault, Outsurance Essential would pay out the third party up to 1 million Rand.
Get the perfect cover for your older car. And remember, Outsurance Essential gets you back on the road quickly because claims are paid in cash within 5 days. Fast-acting, pocket-friendly insurance for older cars. SMS Insure to 40934.
Determination of the MSA, there would be no impact
Good morning. In your sport news, in this hour, Naomi Osaka produced a commanding performance to knock out the third-seeded Coco Gauff 6-3, 6-2 in a highly anticipated fourth-round showdown between the two former US Open champions last night. Four-time Grand Slam champion Osaka showed flashes of her old brilliance as she took control of the match from the start, while the 2023 champion in Coco Gauff struggled with her forehand as well as her serve. Yesterday's showdown marked the first time that the two fan favourites met in New York since their memorable 2019 tussle, where the then 15-year-old Gauff lost to Osaka. The result carried Osaka into the Flushing Meadows quarterfinals for the first time in 5 years, and next up for her, she will play the Czech 11th-seeded Karolina Muchova. Meanwhile, earlier on in the day, it was a laser-focused Iga Swiatek who barely broke sweat as the 2022 champion methodically dismantled Russia's 13th-seeded Ekaterina Alexandrova 6-3, 6-1 to book her return to the quarterfinals. The 24-year-old's crushing win at the Louis Armstrong Stadium means that she now becomes the youngest woman to reach at least the quarterfinals of all 4 Grand Slams in a single season. 18-year-old Maria Sharapova managed the feat back in 2005. Meanwhile, in terms of action in the men's draw yesterday, Felix Auger-Aliassime returned to his first major quarter-final since the 2022 Australian Open with a composed 7-5, 6-3, 6-4 victory over Russia's Andrei Rublev.
Maybe we will get to know.
Into your football news we go now, where English Premier League clubs have splashed out more than ever before in a transfer window as spending this summer surpassed £3 billion. A total of £2.73 billion had been spent by the 31st of August, but big money deadline day deals headlined by Alexandra Isak's move from Newcastle to Liverpool for a British record £125 million pushed the total to a £3.087 billion. The spending was significantly more than last summer, when the outlay by top-flight teams was just at £1.96 billion. As expected, Liverpool move for England's defender Mark Gay failed to happen in the end, as Crystal Palace would not sanction the transfer as they faced difficulties in bringing in a replacement for their captain. Now, following confirmation of Swedish striker Isak's departure, Newcastle then announced the £55 million arrival of Wissa from Brentford. Manchester United, they brought in Belgian goalkeeper Lemens from Royal Antwerp for an initial £18.1 million, while the Red Devils forward Sancho completed a season-long loan move to Aston Villa, who also signed Liverpool midfielder Elliott on loan with an option to buy. Tottenham Hotspur took Paris Saint-Germain striker Kolomwani on a season-long loan deal, while Arsenal brought in defender Henkapi from Bayer Leverkusen, also on a loan deal. Staying with your football news, but bringing it back home to South Africa, Bafana Bafana coach Hugo Bruce has called up Orlando Pirates midfielder Sipho Mbule as a replacement for the injured Patrick Maswanganyi. This is for the back-to-back 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Lesotho and Nigeria. Now, all the players called up to the squad, including Mbule, have reported for camp, except the Germany-based Imo Ocon. The team has also had its first training session at the Dobsonville Stadium yesterday, and they will have 2 more training sessions, one today and another one tomorrow, before leaving for Bloemfontein for the match against Lesotho in the first qualifier on Friday. Hugo Bruce does say that Sipho Mbule has qualities that they are looking to fill in terms of the role played by Maswanganyi, as also was earmarked for the likes of Themba Mshishi Zwane, who is also injured in terms of this Bafana team.
I have to say to Tito, sorry, go home. We can't take that risk. His replacement is Sipho Mbule.
Thank you so much, sir.
Why Sipho Mbule?
We appreciate that.
I think everybody agrees that he's a player with much qualities. And I have to agree also that the past years we didn't really see what we expected from a player like that. But he's an experienced player, and he's a player, one of those players who can play on that position. You know already that for more than a year we look for a replacement of Temba. We had Tito, but now Tito is also injured, so it was very difficult to find someone with those qualities. And I think with Mbule, we have the right player on the right position.
Still with your football news, Bayer Leverkusen have sacked manager Erik ten Hag after 2 league games in charge, with the weekend draw at Bremen not enough to save the Dutchman's job. Leverkusen lost their opening league game 2-1 at home to Hoffenheim to put ten Hag immediately under pressure, and Saturday's 3-3 draw against a 10-man Bremen brings an end to his short reign at the club. Ten Hag, who had been out of management since his sacking by Manchester United in October, replaced Xavi Alonso in May after the Spaniard left to take over at Real Madrid. Leverkusen finished second in the league last season after Alonso had led them to the double in the 2023-24 campaign, where they lifted their first Bundesliga title without losing a single league game. And that's the note in which we'll wrap up your sport news for now, right here on the agenda. Do continue to stay tuned to SABC News.
V, thanks very much indeed. Here's other news worth your attention this Tuesday. Public Service and Administration Minister Inkosi Mzamo Buthelezi has launched the Integrated Public Service Month 2025 in Pretoria. The program includes initiatives aimed at empowering government and citizens to shape service standards. SABC News reporter Mulemo Motwa is live to us in the country's capital and is watching this story. And Mulemo, help us break down what the objective is here.
That I will talk to is just an update on developments that happened.
Good morning, Ayanda, and to the viewers as well. Well, the minister has just concluded his briefing, launching the Integrated Public Service Month, well expounding on issues of public service. As you would know, that communities out there, many are still, having concerns about service delivery issues. But just to get more on that, I'm now joined by the Deputy Minister, Pinky Kekana, to tell us what the launch actually entailed.
Look, September month, and let me greet the viewers as well, and all the media houses, especially our public broadcaster. September month is Public Service Month. We now call it Integrated Public Service Month because not only are we focusing on departments that are public service related, we also look at municipalities, we also look at public servants who are also serving in SOS. We go all out to remind our professionals that remain professional, be ready to serve, help this elderly, help this disabled person, because you have declared that you'll serve our people with integrity. We want to bring back that trust to our people to say, as they go to hospitals, as they go to report cases in police stations or anywhere else where our people want service, they must be served with integrity. But we are also saying to our communities, give us feedback. Where we do right, please tell us and tell us. We are proud of you. We are no longer standing on long queues. We are happy. This department is doing it so right, whether it's home affairs, whether it's a clinic, whether it's a hospital. But also, where we are not doing well, give us the same feedback so that we can raise the bar. We want to partner with media houses to say, tell good stories, but also be transparent where you think we're not doing well, so that together we're able to build this nation together, whether from private sector, from public sector, media houses, our citizens. Let's hold hands in this month. So we'll be going all out in various provinces with many departments, with trade unions which are in the public sector, just going there and saying, I want to be professional. I want to serve this community with dignity.
And obviously some of the engagements, Deputy Minister, that you have had previously, I believe this is not going to be the first time that you'd be engaging with the communities out there. What are some of the issues that, are still, giving them challenges?
Look, there has been always a challenge, especially in hospitals, the long queues there, especially because of the filing system, not modernizing and all these things. We are happy that this modernization in the Home Affairs sector, SARS is also doing so well. When people are doing that, there are areas, you have seen how.
To clear transactions in their own name for their clients, to clear transactions in their own name for their clients, but they still need to settle through a bank because the Act prescribes who can have an account, and before they get a banking license, in that process, they need to be sponsored. This is just to set the background to say, although they are designated, they still need to be sponsored in settlement. That is where the settlement takes place in the SARB because of the restrictions of the Act. And we indicate in there that Standard Bank is their settlement sponsor. Whereas they clear transactions, when settlement happens, it happens through their sponsor, who is Standard Bank. Then we indicating indeed there that all licensed banks operating in the NPS are eligible to provide services to SASSA grant beneficiaries. Clearing participant like Postbank can also provide those services. And thus, we have the conversation that will enter where the Postbank has issued gold cards to the SASSA beneficiaries, and they subsequently issued the black cards. Now, after the designation, we indicating here that we had to vary the designation due to some reasons, and we indicated there that the SARB deemed it necessary to vary the conditions of Postbank's designation after a cryptographic security breach at Postbank and fraud that was perpetuated on the Postbank SASSA gold cards. This action was taken in consideration of the NPS Act and the interest of the safety, integrity, effectiveness, and efficiency of the national payment system. Just to set the context of this cryptographic key, what happens is that parties that issue cards need to have a key that is used to sign those cards when they are issued. This is to avoid fraud, that a card may be issued or duplicated to perpetuate, to maybe access funds in somebody's account. And this key is a long key, and because of trying to avoid collusion, is divided into three. I'll just give you a typical example. Let's just assume that it's a 12-character key. Divided into three, it will have 4 characters each. One person is in control of the 4. The second person is in control of the next 4. The third person is in control of the third 4. So that if fraud has to be perpetuated, there should be collusion. Without any part of the key, the other 2 can do nothing. So that key is set up, divided into 3, given 3 people. We call those people security officers. Each one is in control of their part. And when the key is generated, I get my piece, you get your piece, somebody else gets their piece. When we have to load this key on equipment that will sign the cards, we all have to be there and bring our bits. So this is to ensure that for fraud to happen, those 3 people have to be colluding. Now, in this instance of the first variation notice, the three parts of the key was exposed, where one person could have access to them. And thus one person has got the full key. And thus, in this case, we say fraud was perpetuated and things went wrong. So now, the variation notice by the SARB was to cause that key to be replaced with one that has got integrity. Because this one is compromised, you force that another key be issued and strict measures be applied to ensure that it's treated with integrity. Just to give the background. Then we indicate in there that the variation notice was considered the least disruptive instead of withdrawing the designation. So if fraud is perpetuated in the system, it will cause lack of trust of the system. Because there's fraud, I would maybe resort back to cash, because I think my value that is stored is exposed because the key is compromised. So now, to minimize the impact on SASSA beneficiaries, a new key was forced to be issued, and the old key was no more usable. That is, you cannot sign new cards with that key, so that you avoid the fraud that could be perpetuated. And in this arrangement, both SAPO and the rest of the banks that are in that payment stream of card came together to mitigate the risk of fraud being committed. And indeed, honorable members will be aware, this was used to issue the gold cards, and those gold cards are still in the system, and there's no fraud, because no new cards can be issued with that key. A new key was generated that is used to issue the black cards. So the fraud was contained. The cards that are in the hands of the beneficiaries continue to work, but no new cards can be issued with that key. This was deemed as the least disruptive option from a regulatory perspective of the SARB, to ensure that the beneficiaries are not negatively impacted, but the fraud is contained. This was the position of the regulator in protecting the system, just to set the context. This first variation was effected via Gazette 1606, as we indicate there, dated the 17th of December 2021. And condition 413 of the first variation notice required Postbank to produce cards for Postbank's entire client base using a new security key, which is the key that was used for the black cards. This variation notice was not met, and the reasons that we have as the SARB, as the regulator, for consideration of issuing the second variation notice was twofold. But I think the Postbank could talk to it because they have more detail. First, at the time, the Postbank was capacitating itself, and it had to appoint the chief security officer and some positions. And at the time, they were given a moratorium not to appoint by the principals based on financial impact or something. So the Postbank wanted to fill some of the positions to be able to address the issues. But there was a moratorium that was twofold. First, they were unable to capacitate themselves and fill certain roles because they were told to halt the hiring. They can say more about that. Secondly, there was a moratorium on them onboarding service providers that could have assisted them to address the generation of the new key and the system issues that were involved. So that's the reasons that we were given and that we accepted, that they could not meet the first variation notice because they couldn't fill the roles because there was a moratorium. They couldn't onboard service providers that they needed to address the issues. That's the first issue relating to the first variation notice. Then came the second variation notice, that had to be issued by the SARB to ensure that the gold cards continue to work in a secure environment, and then the SASA beneficiaries are not adversely impacted. We issued the second variation notice, as we say there. We're saying due to the Postbank not meeting the deadline of the first variation notice for reasons that I stated, they were granted an extension, and we issued the second variation notice. And we indicated that the extension was considered the less disruptive compared to summarily withdrawing the designation, which would have left social grant beneficiaries at risk of not accessing their grants. We issued the second variation notice. When the deadline of the second variation notice came, it was not met. And the reason that we have there was that the moratorium of the Postbank sourcing service providers that could assist them to meet all the conditions was lifted late. It was lifted by the state organ responsible 6 months before they had to meet the deadline, and there was not enough time for them to meet the deadline. We indicate that in the interest of ensuring that the beneficiaries are not negatively impacted, that's the reason that was provided. Then we issued the third variation notice, giving them time. Remember, the fraud is under control, and we don't want the beneficiaries to be negatively impacted. And we recognize that there's still gold cards in the system that beneficiaries use. We want those beneficiaries to continue to access their grants without negative impact. Then we issued the third variation notice. That needed to be met, as we indicate in there. The second was not met, and then we issued the third variation notice. And as indicated, we consider this the less disruptive option. The system's integrity is contained. The beneficiaries will continue to receive their grant. Now we are on the third. This third variation notice was also not met, and this is probably why we're here, because the portfolio committee felt that we had summarily suspended the rollout of the gold cards, and what is the impact on the SASA beneficiaries. At the time of us sending this presentation, we had not issued the fourth variation notice. And the reason of the third variation notice not being met were twofold. As we engaged with the Postbank as a designated clearing participant, they shared with us these two reasons. They struggled to get the beneficiaries that are still having the gold cards to come forward, to come and swap out those cards. And secondly, we are aware they had a contractual dispute with one of their key service providers, which dispute seemingly has been addressed. So they had a dispute with a contractual partner that impacted the service. Secondly, some of the participants, well, most of the participants that still hold on to gold cards did not come forward. Now, if, for instance, we said they didn't meet the third variation notice, anybody with the gold cards in their hand cannot get their grants, we felt that it would have been unfair and it would impact negatively on the grants recipients. Based on those two reasons, at the time of sending this presentation, we're saying in March 2025, following lengthy processes, working closely with Postbank to comply with the various conditions, the SARB, we suspended the replacement of the gold cards while we were working on the process of issuing the fourth variation notice, which would extend the designation, and the extension was considered to ensure the social grant beneficiaries continue to have access to their grants. At the time of sending this presentation, that was the status. The current status is that on the 29th of August, which is last week Friday, that fourth variation notice was issued, meaning that the moratorium issue, as well as the process going forward, has been agreed with Postbank as to what would happen and what the timelines are, and they can answer to that. We're just indicating that the fourth variation notice has been issued. And in the main, as members will hear, all these things are done because we would like to avoid any negative impact on the SASSA beneficiaries, but on the other hand, we are comfortable that the integrity and the safety is in check because the key that was used to issue those cards have been extended. So we're indicating now on this slide that the impact of Postbank SASSA social grant beneficiaries, it should be pointed that SASSA grants are still able to use the gold cards despite the indefinite suspension of Postbank card replacement process. Grant recipients will not be adversely affected while we concurrently try to find solutions. Additionally, SASSA grant recipients who have more recently been issued with the black card will also not be adversely impacted. And at the center of the problem is for us working as a regulator with a regulated entity being Postbank, working with them to ensure that their key management process has integrity so that there's trust in the system and honorable members can feel assured that the grants that are deposited in the accounts of the recipients are safe and will not be siphoned by crooked parties. And then we're indicating that with the fourth variation notice, which was due to be gazetted, but now I'm saying has been gazetted on the 29th of August, we believe that we are under control and we work with Postbank as a regulated entity to ensure that all measures are taken into account to ensure that the integrity of the system is maintained and the grant benefits that are paid to grant recipients is in no way exposed to risk of fraud. In conclusion, we're indicating that the SARB has been dealing with matters related to SASSA grant recipients since the cash pay master services era. I remember, I think, Chair was involved in those processes, and even after transitioning to Post Office and to Postbank. And we just want to reiterate that the SARB's main objectives continue to be ensuring the safety, efficiency objectives of the national payment system are met, ensuring that the social grant recipients continue to receive their grants without interruption through their chosen channel, and I must indicate, without exposure to fraud, and broadly, fraud in the national payment system is mitigated. I'll pause here, Chair, and hope with that background, lengthy background ahead, and specifically as to where we are, members would hopefully have exposure as to what was done and where we were coming from and where we are, and we present ourselves to respond to any questions that may directly relate to the South African Reserve Bank. And we hope that in the slot where Postbank could need to present themselves, they will clarify some of the aspects of what we presented. We thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Thank you so much for that presentation. Just before I asked the members to ask questions or comments, I would like to request that we be sent by email the updated presentation, just so that we have it. But I believe the presentation was clear enough, and the members would have enough information with themselves to be able to engage and ask questions accordingly. We are looking forward, as you say rightly, to the presentation by the Postbank, where any gaps, if at all, will be filled in the process of them presenting to us this morning. We also did not receive the presentation, honourable members. The presentation from Postbank arrived this morning. Yes, so if you can just, I'm sure you will be able to go through it as the presentation takes place. It doesn't look like a long presentation at all. So if you could just, by that I'm apologizing for not having facilitated that the presentation gets to you in good time, as is always the case. I would like then now to hand over to the honourable members for them to ask questions or comments or engage the South African Reserve Bank after that presentation, which we appreciate and are grateful for. Honourable Abrams and Honourable Ramayila, Honourable Mare, Honourable Tafeni. You are welcome, Honourable Tafeni. We did hear that you were on your way. Honourable Reverend Kobaza. And that looks like it will be all for now. So we will go in that order. Honourable Abrams.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the presentation. My questions are as follows. What does the sponsorship for settlement mean in practical terms? And then your role as an overseer, and it's in your presentation you said you've been coming along this relationship with SASSA since CPS days. So that means you've also participated with the COVID SRD grant as well. So we also know that there was widespread fraud and corruption within that grant as well. So what then oversight role did you play when it came to fraud and corruption with that grant? Then also, are you, well, is it your opinion, or are you in support, I'm just trying to phrase it, TC, do you agree that, maybe I should ask it this way, do you agree that SASSA should have MOUs or agreements with selected, if any, insurance companies offering policies like funeral policies, noting that beneficiaries would very often have little to no financial education on the available options, and therefore it circumvents the constitutional right to self-autonomy over their finances. And of course, partnering with, for many of these people, a trusted organization like SASSA means that, you know, this is the option, and sometimes almost the only option available to them. So I'd just like your comments on that, because I asked this in the wake of now again unlawful deductions that are coming up, and also the fact that it can be viewed that these companies are in a way exploiting senior citizens with little to no financial education. And then on the same topic of unlawful deductions, is it not in breach of the National Payment Act in that these companies take money before the grant is in the bank account? And I mean, if the national payment system is responsible from paying process all the way to beneficiary, is this then not in a sense a loophole that they've managed to find, in that it's operating at a point before it goes from payment to the beneficiary? And then how do we, if it is then a loophole, how do we then close that? Because, you know, the whole point of moving with Postbank was because Postbank couldn't do debit orders. That was one of the reasons we moved over to Postbank, unlike CPS that did a range of debit orders. But also, we somehow treat our vulnerable citizens on social grants like they're different to us. I mean, our debit orders go off when our monies are in our bank accounts. Why are they being treated in a different fashion? And then another question I have is, where is this now? Oh, it's a question I asked last time as well, but not ever to the South African Reserve Bank. Again, you and I and government, and government obviously uses the national payment system. We get our salaries on the same day every single month. And it's been a call that is particularly the seniors have been asking for, because they struggle to plan their lives around different dates. Every month it's a different date. And now that more beneficiaries are banking with other banks, is it, in your opinion, possible that they too can get their grants on the same day every month, if it's this same National Payment Act that regulates your and my salary that gets paid on the same day, every month? And then why can't Postbank onboard new clients? Yes, they can move clients from the gold cards to the black cards, but why can't they have new clients signing up using the black card? And then during the cash pay point era, there was a lot of fraud and corruption and theft, and there was limited checks and control because we were working with cash, and they were cash in transit heists and the like, and there was a lot of suffering. But there was always this regulation, and you mentioned it in your presentation too, Regulation 23(1), where beneficiaries can choose the bank account of their choice, and just like many of them may or may not, choose Postbank when all is said and done. Why not then, as your role as an overseer, regulator, all of those functions that you do, why not then step in years ago and ask SASSA to actually adequately educate and role and, with the full force of their comms team, prioritize this regulation and move people a lot sooner over to banks than go down this route of the South African Post Office? And then when my bank card expires, and this is once again, treating people, our beneficiaries, like they are different. When my bank card expires, the onus is on me to get my new bank card and to facilitate that I am home or someone's at home, etc., and to get my bank card. Why was the sole responsibility of the beneficiaries getting their new black cards put on the Postbank? Why was that responsibility put on them if everybody else, the responsibility is on their own person to do it? And then, Chairperson, I will leave my questions to the Postbank for after their presentation. But just to say that you mentioned that Postbank was in a dispute with a stakeholder. Who is that stakeholder? Are you referring to SASSA as being the stakeholder, or is there another stakeholder that you're referring to? And if it is then SASSA that you're referring to being this dispute, when was the South African Reserve Bank made aware of this dispute, noting that this termination has now been 18 months in the making? And I think at last week's meeting, the Minister indicated that they only recently got the letter from DPME about an intergovernmental dispute process, which is rather late if notice was given 18 months ago. And then lastly, at the end of last week's meeting, I asked the Chair if I could submit questions in writing, and you responded accordingly. And the one question I asked is, it was actually the Minister's question to our committee last week, and that is, how can we be sure that the individuals with gold cards that have not come forward to renew their black cards, how can we make sure that it's in fact not ghost beneficiaries? And I mean, the response you've given to me is that the administration of social grant applications, including the eligibility checks on new applicants and existing social grant beneficiaries, is in the domain of SASSA and its service partner if agreed by SASSA. The South African Reserve Bank has no role in that that space. Yet here you gave us assurances that the gold cards are not fraudulent gold cards. So I mean, the minister raised this concern. You've given us the assurance. Maybe the question would be better answered by the Postbank. But I'm still uncertain that, you know, and like you said, it's the responsibility of SASSA to then do that check. But I'm still then uncertain if the individual's still sitting with gold cards, if they don't come forward by the time their gold card expires, whether or not that whole period we were paying the right person. So thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Abrams. I see the minister's, I don't know whether she was greeting me or wanted to say something. Yo. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Good morning, Chair, honourable members and your guests. I just want to indicate that when you're done with your list, can I please raise my issues, please, Chair, with your indulgence, please.
No, that is quite in order. The Honourable Ramaila.
Thank you, Chair, and greeting once more to the Minister. Unfortunately, the sitting arrangement is such that we must not see each other face to face. And officials from the South African Reserve Bank and the Postbank. First, I must appreciate the assurance from the Reserve Bank that the SASSA beneficiaries so far are safe. They won't lose their money, and that the level of assurance is such that fraud is being minimized. That is much appreciated. But further, I would also want to appreciate the legislative mandate that has been given to the Postbank in the sense of filling the gap that exists out there in the retail banking services by ensuring that there's promotion of financial inclusion within the society, particularly in rural and lower income markets, including communities with limited access to retail banking. I think that legislative mandate is very, very clear. Whether the Postbank is indeed up to that mandate, maybe it's something that it's a question that I may pose now and ask them to answer it later. Whether are they really up to that mandate provided to them? Because that we have seen during the replacement of the gold cards or conversion to black cards, our experience as members is that particularly in rural areas, there was quite a serious gap in terms of the rollout and reach out to particularly the black communities in rural areas there, in line with the mandate, the legislative mandate. But I'm saying that the Postbank should be able to answer at the correct time. And I was listening carefully when the Reserve Bank was speaking about the issuance of variation notices, 1 up to 3. That happened because the Postbank was not compliant. And the 4th one is issued on the 29th of August, just recently, with conditions as well. So that's the 4th variation. I think coming from 2021 to 2025. And it's quite a lengthy period within which the Postbank was unable to comply. Maybe if we could be privileged from the Reserve Bank, in as far as this 4th variation notice is concerned, what are those conditions, so that as a committee we should be able to know those conditions? Because if we are not exposed to those conditions, we are also disabled to to play oversight on the matter. But still, whilst there, the switch from gold to black card is incomplete, and we don't know when is it going to be completed. It's like subject to confirmation by the Reserve Bank. It's sort of an open-ended thing for now, and we can't operate like that. And according to the Reserve Bank, one of the conditions is also that the issuance of the first black card will result in the second issuance of the black card. Now, if even the first one of switching from gold to black is not completed, how will then the switching from the first black card to the second black card happen? But also, that borders also on the question that I say, we need to be provided with those conditions that the SARS has set up for the Postbank to comply, because it shows that the post taken into consideration. Then about the notice to terminate the MSA contract by SASSA. When I followed through briefly, the background is that actually SASSA initiated that initially, but it had given 6 months. And in response, using the clause 5.1 of the agreement, then Post Office said that's too short a notice, and in line with clause 5.1, give us 18 months, which 18 months is coming to an end now. Now that makes me to want also to talk to the nature of the contract between SASSA and the Postbank. And in terms of the nature of the contract, also as contained in clause 5.1, it says both parties have got an exit clause. There's an exit clause actually, and either of the parties can notify the other of the termination of the contract, which would then mean the contract is not an evergreen contract, according to clause 5.1. Maybe what we may then want to understand, as the fourth notice has been issued by the Reserve Bank, juxtaposing the termination of the MSA by SASSA, and agreeing and accepting the assurance that the Reserve Bank has given us. In between, what should happen? Because I'm saying the legislative mandate of the Postbank, in my view, is a very important legislative mandate that must be carried out through. It's unfortunate that the Postbank is failing to carry that legislative mandate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ramaila, for those questions and comments. I will now hand over to the Honorable Murray.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I want to greet each and everyone here. Thank you for the presentation this morning. And I think we all maybe have the same questions that we want to ask, is that I just need to know the timeline that you're going to have for the black card, the first one to be phased out. Because as you know, the gold card is running concurrently with the black card. So to introduce a phase 2, how long is it going to take? Because at the very moment, people are not even sure the gold card and the black card, because both is working. My problem that I'm having is that these gold cards were given to our old people within malls, shopping centers. And as you can see here, you said the key requirement for Postbank to obtain its banking license is to separate from the South African Post Office to fully comply with the Banking Act. But at the very moment, Postbank does not have offices. Postbank doesn't have anything where all people can go and inquire to ask something. At the very moment, the only reason why monies are being deducted from the SASSA is because they can't have debit orders, they have these, what do you call it, orders, stop orders. And the only people that can stop the stop orders when the person go inside to the bank to stop that stop orders, because there's no regulars going off, and that is why the stop order go off as soon as the money comes in. It goes off before the people even get the money. So that is a concern for me. And then also, I just would like to know is that because the post office is closed, most of the people don't know where to go. To have the second phase, does it mean that people have to go to the malls again to go and register? Because it was a very strenuous exercise for our people. People fell ill, they collapsed within that queues. And I just need to find out what is your rule on that. And after the key requirements for Postbank is obtained, are you making sure that this is going to become a state bank? Or is it just to give the SASA money? And as you said, that everyone is going to get their money. Gold card, black cards, they're going to get their money. People mustn't stress about it. But I want to find out is that if that is the case, when is the gold card going to phase out? Because the gold card's time has expired a long time ago. We had the frenzy where people had to run to the malls to go and do these things. And you said that because of these different steps that you've taken, the variation that you took, that there was no more fraud. But fraud even happened during the gold card, the black card now. Because I have a person that was waiting for his money. And he went to the post office. His daughter is a member of parliament here. He passed away last week. He was buried. And the gold card was gotten. She got the gold card for the father. It was never activated. For 14 months, she couldn't get the money, running up and down to the post office because there is no post office. She was running up and down, making phone calls. And the person in Postbank could tell her that there's 26,000 rand in the account. The next minute, the money is gone. So it means someone in the post office took that money. So if you are saying that you have eradicated those things of fraud and all these things because of the variation of 1 to 4, how come it is still happening? And then the thing that I want to know is that what measures are going to be put in place not to have the same chaos that we had at the beginning of this year? And before that even, because post office woke up very late to say this is the deadline, and then they extended the deadline, and then they extended the deadline because they could see they couldn't make it. But till today, the deadline was never met because people are still using the gold cards. So I'm very happy with the things that you were saying here on this thing. But the question that we are asking is that, are people going to get their money? What is going to be the impact on our old people? Because just last week, the old people had a march here to Parliament to say they are tired of the treatment that they are getting from SASSA and from the government. And we need to treat our old people with respect and dignity. And this is what we are doing. It is not right to our old people. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Mare, for those questions and comments. I believe the next Honourable Member would be Honourable Tafeni.
Enkosi Sihlalo, mandibulise kumphathiswa, ndibulise amalungu ekomiti, ndibulise isigaba sika-SASSA nabacacisi baka-Postbank. Chairperson, I want to put those comments and also the questions. What are the risks associated with the continued use of gold cards by recipients? And since this ongoing matter between Postbank and the Reserve Bank is far from being resolved, does this not leave gold card holders exposed to potential online fraud and the like associated with the continual use of gold cards? Lastly, what has been happening since 2021 to ensure that corrective action is being taken? In that matter, the primary rationale for banking regulation is to protect the clients. Does Postbank have any measure in place to protect its clients, and how is the message communicated to all parts of the different societies? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Tafeni, for your questions. And now the last hand that I saw was that of the Honorable Gqabaza, Reverend Gqabaza.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Greetings to the officials of Reserve Bank. Chairperson, I see all of this, we are all government. We Reserve Bank, Postbank, SASSA, social development. I think we have a problem with government. When these things like this happen, we don't find integration, we don't find ourselves being able to work together and capacitate one another. I think it is beginning of this year when we spoke, and I spoke about the Postbank, that we are looking at it as a future state bank. Now, with Reserve Bank, maybe my question would first say, who owns the Reserve Bank? If Reserve Bank is able to, out of the deep hole African Bank was, and Reserve Bank was able to come in and help, and the bank is up, the bank is running now, which is African Bank, and this is a state bank we are talking about, of which is Postbank. Where is the assistant? Where do we stop? Where do we start assisting the bank itself, as we are looking at it as a state bank, as a future state bank? And this thing of payment, maybe, Chairperson, also we should look deep into it, is not just paying people. It's where they get the money. Where paying, we can pay, everybody can pay, but I think the issue here was that we have the post office, which is near the people. People are there, and people, the distance between the people where they stay, they are able to get their monies. It is not about paying, just paying, but it is where do we get the money? Do we have to travel days to go and get the money somewhere else, like it's happening now? Now, the biggest challenge, we are saying that no, there will be no problem. People will get their money, of which maybe, yes, Postbank people will get their money, and the others getting their money at ShopRites or at the banks while they are traveling that far. How do we assist this as a Reserve Bank now? How do we look at a Postbank? Do we look at Postbank as a future state bank? Do we look at it as something that must be shut down as we are looking at it as a Reserve Bank, since you can see that there are number of challenges that have been of variations that have been failed by the bank, and it is true that the bank survived because of SASSA with its coming through. So now I'm just checking on that in terms of the Reserve Bank, on how are you stopping now to assist the bank, even though maybe the MOC have been cut or something? Yeah, I think that was important. That was important, and as the Reserve Bank developing the country also at the same time, our intentions as Umkhonto weSizwe is to look at getting people, or getting the payments closer to the people, and Reserve Bank come with some think tank on that, because at the end of the day, you are the regulator. We will say people must get money at the spaza shop, and the regulation say no, we can't do that. We say people, all of those things, and you come as a regulation, and maybe we decline that and say no, we can't do that. Maybe we can get people at the cooperative banks. People must form their cooperative banks, and they must pay. And you say no, you can't do that also. So what is there that you are doing as a Reserve Bank to mitigate the situation and make sure that the money get closer to people when they get paid? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Reverend Obaza. My question comes from, and I'm the last one before I hand over to the Honorable Minister. My question comes from an experience that I had during the constituency period that we've just had now. And my constituency is Alexandra in Johannesburg. And I was trying to assist a number of people about the SASSA issues. And when they showed me their card, their black card, the new one, I didn't know that it doesn't have a name of a person. It's just a card that anyone that gets given. I just wanted to know, is that right for my card, my bank card, not to have my name on it? Or am I just asking a question that doesn't even deserve an answer? But for me, I didn't say anything to the lady. I just helped her with what she was asking me for. But I thought to myself, when I get an opportunity to be in the same room as the Postbank and the South African Reserve Bank, I will ask that question. Is that the right thing for a bank card not to have my name? With that, I would like to hand over to the Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Once again, good morning to you, to the honourable members present, to your esteemed guests from Reserve Bank, as well as departmental officials. I really must appreciate that you gave us an opportunity to be part of your meeting, which really gave us a lot of information, more than what the paper could provide. We really appreciate that. We're so really happy and appreciate this continued commitment for safeguarding the integrity of national payment system while remaining sensitive to the needs of our grant beneficiaries. We really appreciate the kind of work that Reserve Bank is making. Chair, central to my inquisitiveness is whether the gold cards are not replaced. Are they still safe? Like Honorable asked earlier on, I raised this question last week when we came to come and present before you. And we got to be aware that cards are now working parallel. Now my anxiety here, and all of us, is that in our understanding, Reserve Bank penalized the cards. That's my simple English. Apologies if it's too hard. The cards were penalized, then there was a process put in place. There were deadlines for cards to be replaced more than once. Chair, because of anything that is not in the interest of Reserve Bank, but deadlines were not met. And the last deadline that was imposed was one that shook the country. I came before you shivering with the whole delegation because as the committee you frowned at us because our beneficiaries were made to stand in long queues under very difficult circumstances. Very old, some not physically fit to have been made them to get involved in that. Now my biggest worry, Chair, where I'm sitting here, is that in the penalization of those cards, all of us, we are South Africans, people carrying huge amount of cards, sitting in banks, just withdrawing. Now, when they were penalized, we're all happy. And now we got to hear that after all that good effort, that all of us made us to really have this impression that now that problem is being resolved. To date, gold cards are still running. Now my question will be, what are the implications? Knowing that there was that kind of, maybe I must say, alleged corruption, because we all saw that no one can own more than 100 cards, but we saw live happening, people drawing money. Now we are sitting with this very important information that in fact those cards are still in use. Now, if we can be taken into confidence, what then becomes the implications? I understand very well all the challenges that we have, but my biggest problem is what we did into the elder persons, which are beneficiaries, that we made it and inconvenienced in a big way for them to meet deadlines, and we are seated here and said, no, those deadlines were not deadlines anyway. I did last week report to you, Chair, to say, in trying to mitigate what was a disaster, we're still going to come in account. SASSA spent plus minus 20 million because we had no other way but to mitigate, because those were our clients, and according to SASSA Act, we are the sole responsible entity to make sure that grants are distributed to the right person at the right time. Chair, not only that, with that respect, we got to be part and parcel of those cards that were replaced firsthand because we were on those points. We know and we reported the disaster that we all experienced. But on the spot, Chair, we reported here that some of the cards on that day could not work. And again, because this is our sin, elder people were made to go back home on that day for them to come and try the following day in case cards will now work. That was the second problem, and the challenge that we still have to hear from our esteemed guest here, which is Reserve Bank, on how then are we going to resolve that? Because out of the experience of members of parliament in their different constituencies and the work that they do on a daily basis, we got to be informed that in fact this is still the case. People are still finding it difficult with our own. And they ask us, where do I go? Because I can't go to Capital. I can't go to any other bank with all the difficulties that they experience in trying to access those banks, which are in most cases in a huge distance from where they reside. And hence they had to spend the very grant for them to get to where they are supposed to receive them. Now, to our biggest surprise now, along with card number 1, which is gold, card number 2, which is black card 1, there's now a black card 2. Then it really is now, we must be honest, it's devastating for us as SASSA to get to hear that there's no one process that has been concluded. Either the first one that forced the Reserve Bank to intervene because of their responsibility and money, even that intervention has not gone so far in trying to mitigate the problem that was identified. And now we're seated with black card 2. What does that mean? We are now, through your instruction and wisdom, we are guided to get to design systems that cannot be easily penetrated. and systems that will make us to honor what is our responsibility, which is SASSA Act, paying the right person at the right time. But also with the audit outcome that is coming a long way, where SASSA has been penalized for not being able to do exactly that, it is their mandate. You will know seated here that we are coming a long way now. We even committed to say we're coming with this system that is now seek to resolve that matter once and for all. We even reported to say we've even applied to National Treasury to allow us to use money that was not initially made for that, for us to have a special project to make sure that we fast track this that we've started to implement. But we want to inject agility so that we do it faster, but also more responsible, so that the problem that we have identified, and it has been identified by the most reliable institutions, that we are not doing well in that regard. So, our frustration now, Chair, seated here, is what will it mean for SASSA insofar as financial implications are concerned, to have all these three cars running concurrently? Maybe I am asking Reserve Bank a question that is beyond their mandate. However, it is out of frustration, Chair, because I really want now to find a solution on how best are we going to really make sure that beyond what we committed that we are going to do, we are now having a new one that is now a card 2. We want to indicate that we have statistics that indicate that out of all this, we find Postbank, they will articulate their situation with plus minus 8 million customers. Out of all that they were doing, plus minus 453,000 has not yet been replaced. There's still a question. What does that mean? Chair, maybe with your wisdom, with everything that you are doing, how would we be able to make sure that in fact Postbank is paying the right people but not ghosts? Because from where we are seated, I can't believe at this day and age in South Africa, where you call people to come and replace what is to benefit them, and you still said they didn't pitch up. Especially with what we experienced here in March, where all of us, even yourselves, you had to get out of the offices to go and assist the elder persons to make sure that the replacement goes through smoothly. And Chair, I got to hear that, just my curiosity, that the 4th variety has been released in August, which I've got nothing to do with that, but as SASSA, we are on the receiving end. What is the commitment of Reserve Bank on this? Is there any time where this is going to come to a stop, Chair? Or again, SASSA would be expected to do or employ another strategy as the variations are coming? Do we have to spend more money to rescue what will be the outcome of the AG in the next financial year, which will be 26-27? Who will take this responsibility? Because the 6th administration, you know, gave AGSA the powers that if it thinks that the responsible executive authority is to take the blame, she or he might be held personally liable. should we really make ourselves ready for that eventuality? If no, how is the Reserve Bank going to rescue us? Because for me, they are the one who have an authority. So I'm not going to respond on the SASSA versus Postbank, because the Postbank used its right to take the matter to court. The matter now is in court, and I guess with your knowledge and experience, we wouldn't want to really say anything about that. So this is why I will not respond on the matter. But this is what we thought we should take this advantage, Chair, that you invited us in this meeting and ask these difficult questions that ourselves we cannot respond to, but they come direct to us because we are responsible for the implementation of SASSA Act in this regard. And as executive authority who plays oversight over SASSA and its CEO, I thought I should really make a plea to be really assisted in this regard. I'm not suggesting anything about anybody, but I'm saying, Chair, what is this? Where is it going to end? What are the implications? Who will be made liable in the end? When, if it's going to stop, when? But once again, Chair, I must, in closing, assure the members that the termination of the agreement is not going to affect both Postbank clients as well as all other clients who are using all other banks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, for those questions. I am getting more and more informed, especially with the last but one comment that you made about courts and issues such as that. I am going to, for now, while I'm seeking assistance or advice from the ladies that are sitting either side of me, I'm going to hand over to the Reserve Bank to respond to the questions that we asked. And also just me sitting here, I'm a very positive person. In a situation where I have both the Reserve Bank, the Postbank, I'm sure we will sort this thing out. I haven't had time to go through the presentation of Postbank yet, but since they are here in person, I will be following. I'm a very attentive listener, and I will be following the presentation. I am very optimistic that most, if not all, of the questions that have been asked and just the comments that have been made will be attended to by the time we leave this room, which is at 1:30. So over to you, Reserve Bank. Please go ahead and respond to the questions.
Thanks very much, Chair. I hope I'm not going to miss out on some of the questions. Hopefully I managed to note all of them, I hope. And honorable members, if I miss any of those that you could have raised, I hope there would be a moment for you to actually query that so that I respond to all the questions. The first question was for us to shed light about what we mean with this sponsorship in settlement. So I'm going to use just as an example, and hopefully the example will put it as follows. Today, I can use my Standard Bank ATM card to withdraw money at an ABSA ATM. And if I do that, my money is at Standard Bank, that's where my account is, but I'm served by ABSA. I'm getting ABSA's money. Meaning that Standard Bank has to give ABSA that money that they gave to me, because I got ABSA's money and I went on to spend it. But my money is at Standard Bank. So what happens is, both these banks bank with the Reserve Bank. And that's where the Reserve Bank will debit Standard Bank and credit ABSA. Because ABSA has given me money, but my money was at Standard Bank. This is where we say settlement happens. But in some of the banks, I withdraw with my Standard Bank card at a Standard Bank ATM. There's no settlement because they just debit my account because they gave me money. So now, in this instance, Postbank, let's assume, doesn't have ATMs, but they issue cards to the recipients, and the recipients are going to withdraw at the ATMs of the other banks, meaning that the recipients, or even if they withdraw at ShopRite, Checkers, at the cashback at Till, they're going to be given money by an entity. And if you recall, maybe sometimes when you go to supermarkets, you'll see an F&B point of sale or a Capitec or a Standard Bank or something. It means that entity banks with that bank. So when you get that money, the transaction moves through the owner of that gadget, and you get the money. But in case of beneficiaries, their money is lying in Postbank. So Postbank has to pay that bank or that entity for the money that was set, and that's where settlement happens. So Postbank holds the account for this beneficiary. They keep track of the balance and all that, and the obligation arises where they have to now pay the other bank. That can only happen through Standard Bank because Postbank does not have a settlement account in the SARB because it's not yet a bank, or it's not a bank. So that's where the sponsorship comes. They can serve the client, but when the money has to move, it moves through Standard Bank, who is their sponsoring bank. I hope maybe it sheds light. In the purchase of goods is the same. I go to Woolworths with an F&B card, but the terminal at Woolworths is Nedbank, meaning that Nedbank is the banker of Woolworths, and my money has to leave from the Standard Bank, from the F&B account, into Nedbank, into the account of Woolworths, because they gave me the goods. So that's maybe the mechanism just explaining the settlement sponsorship. Now,
before you go on, sorry, Chairperson, I just want to check whether that particular bank is charging the beneficiary. I just want it to be clear. Okay.
Yeah. This is an important question, and I'm going to answer it in the context of Postbank, and I hope I don't get it wrong. If I get it wrong, they must correct me. So, beneficiaries today are able to open an account at any bank or Postbank to receive their grants. It is my understanding that those beneficiaries that open an account at both Postbank is compensated by SASSA, and they would get a few fee-free transactions. No cost, no charges. But I don't know how many withdrawals, but the Postbank people can talk to that. There's a few free transactions if you receive your grant at Postbank. If you receive your grant at another bank, it's going to attract the ATM withdrawal fees and all those kind of things. Because the banks don't differentiate between a SASSA client and any other client. Seemingly, that's the model. And maybe that's where there was an advantage for the grant recipient to receive the grant at Postbank, because there would have been a few free transactions. But they can answer that they in that commercial sector. And maybe to just share with the committee, the Reserve Bank does not have a pricing mandate. Our mandate is safety, efficiency, and integrity of the system. And if we venture into pricing, we'll be taken to court. Because according to the Act, we don't have that mandate. The Financial Conduct Authority maybe are closer to that, and the Competitions Commission. We don't have that mandate unless the lawmakers gave it to us, and we'll see whether we can discharge that. But we understand the pricing, because where things are happening wrong, without a mandate, we use our moral suasion to sway the market into the right direction. But we cannot enforce because we may be taken to court. So the second question, I hope the settlement one is clear. The second question was relating to our role as overseer, and specifically relating to the COVID era and the SRD grant and fraud that could have been perpetuated there. The SRD grant, in our understanding, is not distributed the same as the SASSA grants, and is distributed through what we call a closed loop system, which is a system, I think, that was facilitated by Postbank to distribute these grants. And that system is closed. Normally, a closed loop system, if I try and explain it in a broader context, I would say something like Edgar's used to issue cards. They give you credit on that card, but you could buy Mango plane tickets, and you can buy in-store and all that. It's not used in the open. It's used only in a specific environment. So that's why we say closed loop versus open loop. An open system works in the broad NPS. A closed loop system is confined to a certain space. So these SRD grants were not paid through the broader NPS, but through a closed loop system that Postbank had implemented. And if honorable members knew how the regulatory framework is, we have light touch regulation in the closed loop environment, but we do engage with the Postbank about what they're doing in the closed loop environment. And when this fraud was perpetuated, from our light touch regulation, we don't have the full detail of that fraud, but I would hope that perhaps they could also pick it up. When they make their presentation, they should indicate during the COVID period, when the SRD was introduced and paid in the closed loop system, what was the cost of the fraud and what has been done about it. I would rather defer it to them. But I'm saying from our supervisory perspective, we regulate the NPS, but the closed loop systems that are closed, we have light touch regulation to that. Then the next question was broad, and he spoke to the insurance debits and maybe even the loans, but I think the question was specifically to insurance, that is debiting the grant before it's deposited in the account or after it has been deposited in the account. The abuse, essentially, I think the question was calling for. To say deductions, policies in general, unlawful deductions, what is the protection for beneficiaries, money taken before the beneficiary can access. We call this, in the general sense, we call it payroll deductions, where you and I maybe, the money is debited in the salary even before it's credited into the account, and there's a policy position that we have consulted about that we are due to implement, and it would affect the SASSA beneficiaries. But my belief is that for SASSA beneficiaries, special conditions could be put as to what can be deducted and what not, if they could be identified. For instance, if the grant beneficiaries were receiving their grants through Postbank. An engagement could be entered into with Postbank. Well, second is SASSA and Postbank. SASSA, before they send the pay file to Postbank, they ensure that there's no deductions or one deduction. I think according to the SASSA regulation, there was some provision for a funeral policy that could be. So that could be bedded down and managed to say before the pay file is given to Postbank, one policy can be deducted or nothing can be deducted. That can be set up. And once the money gets into Postbank, I believe we, from a regulatory perspective, could engage on measures that can be put in place to say maybe there shouldn't be any deduction. And how can systems ensure that? Just to manage this abuse, I'm just saying probably if we build business processes, systems can do them. Systems can do anything that you tell it to do. So if we could set up parameters and say that indeed this issue of abuse can be managed. I mean, when we were still dealing in the CPS era, this was a key problem. I don't think it is as big as it is, but measures can be put in place to manage the abuse in terms of what is deducted from the grant before it's paid into the account, and even after it's deposited in the account, what is allowed and what is not. My belief is that we can lend our hand to ensure that measures, we work with the parties to ensure that the vulnerable are not exploited. I don't want to bore the committee about this. In the US, they have systems where they're restricting how you can receive the grant in order to put safeguards and all that. So, but those aspects can be embedded into the system. Now, the next question was, why can't Postbank onboard new clients? I think in the conditions of the first variation notice, and my colleague sitting close to me can indicate whether it permeated, we wanted the conditions to be sorted out as soon as possible. And we said, while the conditions are being addressed, any aspect that impacts the card key security compromised should not be extended, because otherwise you will just be extending the risk. These are conditions that we put in the variation notice. The Postbank CEO did take this matter with us, for instance, to say, yeah, well, they understand that, but what about if they want to sell insurance? Why should they not do that? Because it's unrelated to the concern with the card key. And we believe, yes, we could allow some aspects, but anything that could be impacted by the security key that we're trying to address, we rather believe that put on hold, we address the situation, and then we come back. And I think this comes to one of the questions, and I'm just throwing it in here, to say that I mentioned that we managed to curb the fraud that relates to the security key. But there's a question that says, but fraud generally still takes place, and I think I should apply myself to that question and say, when I say we managed to contain the fraud, is the fraud that relates to the compromise of the key. But whether an employee within Postbank can steal somebody's money, we wouldn't know. I mean, if the controls are not appropriate, a fraud unrelated to the security key could still take place, and we wouldn't know. But I think the Postbank has internal processes to ensure that that doesn't happen. But relating to the onboarding of new clients and issuing them with new cards while we addressing the key issue, that was what the condition was, but I'm not sure whether it's still in the conditions, because based on the questions that were raised, my colleague is going to flesh the conditions that are in the fourth variation notice. There was a question. What conditions and what timelines? So I'm preferring that we rather flesh the fourth variation notice so that you see what conditions are in there. And we also give you information about the timeline of meeting that. But I'm going to comment on one question that kept on coming about the gold cards in circulation and when we will get them right. So then there was a question relating to the fact that the position relating to Postbank, and I'll just sketch a background because I had the fortune of being involved in this matter from the CPS era. Honorable members maybe will know that during the CPS era, there were issues between SASSA and CPS. And I happened to be a member of the Constitutional Court committee that was appointed to interrogate the issues and propose the way forward. And the Constitutional Court committee interrogated the matter, had their report, and forwarded it to DSD, Department of Social Development, and to Parliament as to what needed to be done. And this is what culminated in Parliament deciding that their preference is that social benefits, the SASSA ones, be distributed through Postbank. And that's where the decision was taken that Postbank would, to some extent, be compensated to even provide free services, and for Postbank to put measures to protect the beneficiaries. That's where the decision came from the policymakers, out of that structure of the Constitutional Court. Now, this was the government's position for leveraging Postbank to distribute social benefits, so that some of the shenanigans that we're concerned about during the CPS era could be mitigated. That's where it's coming from. Then there's a question relating to the dispute with the service provider. And this service, the dispute between Postbank and its service provider, that service provider is not SASSA. It's their technical service provider that provides them with technology. And at the heart, as we understand it as the SARB, Postbank was taking issue about the exorbitant fee that this service provider wanted to levy on them, and there were even court cases, and they resolved that matter. We mention in this that dispute impacted the delay in some of the internal processes of Postbank. But it seems they ultimately found each other, and I think, if I recall, they resolved, this matter was in court, but has been resolved out of court. They may talk to that, but the service provider was not SASSA. It was a technology service provider based both in South Africa and the UK, but they can speak to that. And I hope that has been resolved. Then the position of gold cards holders, fraud and current cards. Yes, I indicated already that when I'm saying the fraud is under control, is the fraud that is related to the compromise of the key. Other fraud of fraudsters, if Postbank has got rogue employees, maybe it can still take place. And if SASSA, for instance, when they issue their pay file, there's ghost beneficiaries in there, maybe they could still be, but I think the system is in a good space in terms of observation from the SARB side, but I think we will intervene if the safety, efficiency, and the integrity is involved. And as we regulate banks and designated participants, we'll engage them if there's prevalence of fraud that they need to take care of. Then there was a question about Postbank being well positioned to fill the gap for ensuring access to services. Indeed, the banks are not going into far-flung areas where services are required. And if the policymakers, including yourselves, believe that someone can be given a mandate to go there and ensure that services are rolled out, I believe that if the Postbank is that party, it could be supported to do this. But I'm going to indicate further down what the SARB is doing in ensuring that the underserved are served. And I'll share with you what is at play at the moment and maybe where we are and some indicative timelines. Now, relating to this question was what are the conditions of the fourth variation notice? And secondly, will the switch of the gold card be completed in time? And even the switch from black card 1 to black card 2. And I want my colleague to flash the conditions, and we will also touch on the timeline. But I want to indicate this relating to the gold cards, and based on my interaction, my and my team's interaction with Postbank, to say these remaining gold cards, why are they hard to replace, and what interventions can be brought into the equation? And I think here it relates to even the questions that were said. The swap-outs were happening at the retailers, and the queues were long, and the people really were not treated with dignity. The conversation that I had with the CEO of Postbank was, what are the opportunities of bringing interventions to ensure that the swap-out processes could happen in school halls, in the villages where the beneficiaries are, or some kind of mobile facility that could go around. Would the regulatory environment impede that? Or directly, the CEO asking, could the regulatory environment enable that, so that we move to where these people are and we mop up these cards? That's something that I believe, on the back of the fourth variation notice, could probably make a difference to try and get closer to those people and not enforce that it should be done in the brick and mortar, in a bank or something. But you can use the school halls where the swap-out officials could go, or you could have a mobile facility. This is something that could be brought as an intervention to realize the fourth variation notice. It's something that, with the possibility that the Postbank could find, could be facilitated to try and mop up, I think it was said, the 400,000 odd cards that are still to be swapped out. My belief is that if we are pragmatic, without introducing risk, we could see that those measures are brought into the equation. Then the question relating to, okay, yeah, maybe before I go further, my colleague says the conditions. Do we have the technical provider to? Otherwise, we're going to have to read it to you, but it is on our website, because after gazetting, we have put it up there. But maybe if the technology is failing us, he could just flash it. And now I'm not going to read the whole condition, but I'll just indicate what the conditions are for the benefit of the committee. In the interest of time, Chair, we could wait, or I could process them.
Was this the last question to be responded to?
No, or maybe I can skip that one and we'll come back to it.
Yes, let's come back to it.
Yes,
I will just be trying to get someone to, our technology person, to come back and help us.
Yeah, and then that question with the condition says, when will the switch from the gold be completed? It is part of the timeline in there, and I just said, can we have ways that can enable us to reach those beneficiaries. And I mean, I'll say here, and Postbank can talk to that, to say, what about if those beneficiaries don't come forward? And this question relates to the bulk of the matters that have been said, but I'm going to just put a general rider on it. Normally, when we get cards, you find that they have expiry date. You use them for a time, and at some point they expire and you're forced to get another card. I think the gold cards, and the Postbank can indicate whether that could be possible. If the beneficiaries don't come forward, and we would wish for you to support that process, if the beneficiaries don't come forward, in this analogy of cards expiry, at their expiry date, they will be forced to come forward and sort them out. Because if your card expires, you go and get a new card. And when you go there, because the key has been suspended, you can't get a gold card. You'll get the card with the most safest key, which is the new key. I'm just mentioning that to say on many of the questions about the life of these gold cards, you could force them to do that, and you could stagger them. You could have a reasonable timeline and do that. Then, yes, well, the second question I'm not going to be able to answer. The termination of the MSA, the timeline, the nature of the contract, the exit clause in the contract. Mention was made of clause 5.1, and I can answer that, and the legislative mandate of Postbank, and I indicated that coming out of the constitutional court structure and going off CPS, the legislatures, the authorities like yourselves, I think, thought that the Postbank could be leveraged to distribute these cards. And then the timeline for phasing out gold cards, I think I spoke to. Venues for swap out, as I indicated, some mobile facilities could be considered. Postbank does not have offices, indeed, and stop orders at Postbank and other banks. Yeah, this, I think, those deductions, interventions could be brought to protect the beneficiaries, and this would be a conversation that SASSA would need to be comfortable, and yourselves would need to be comfortable with. Postbank can implement that, and if it goes to the other banks, we can engage as to whether they can identify accounts of social beneficiaries and ensure that they don't attract deductions. And then Postbank as a state bank, I think there's that aspiration, and we as the SARB will work with within the processes that may have been decided. Okay, fraud not related, no, that I answered to why there's still fraud. I think I answered that by saying we contained fraud that is relating to the key. There may be other fraud that is unrelated. What measures are in place to avoid confusion? Yeah, I think in our regulatory role, members should be aware that we don't regulate SASSA, but we regulate Postbank as a designated participant. So when these matters were happening, Postbank can bear us out or maybe dispute this. We were emphasizing Postbank aligning its messaging with the messaging from SASSA. We don't regulate SASSA, but we believe the Postbank and SASSA have got a relationship. So when there's messaging, we were impressing on Postbank to ensure that there's alignment between the message they issue and the message that is issued by SASSA. And for us, our call was that the messaging should be aligned to the regulator's position and what, because we don't want them to communicate something and the SARB says no, it's not what we agreed upon. So that alignment we were calling for to avoid the confusion. And what are the risks for continued use of the gold cards? We are saying that the risk of the security key that had fraud before being used to perpetrate fraud has been avoided. So at least that part, that is our concern. But having rogue employees, maybe that can dip into people's accounts, needs to be addressed through internal processes. What has been happening since 2021 to protect the clients? Our call has been, in whatever regulatory intervention that we bring, we do not wish for the beneficiaries to be deprived of accessing their benefits. That has been safety, efficiency, and whatever, but ensuring that beneficiaries would continue to receive their grants. And I think one of the questions was raised about, what about possibility of rogue beneficiaries? That one I will put here, as SASSA can also answer for themselves. I think SASSA has got a database of who qualifies for the benefit, and they generate a pay file, and they segment it, and they send a portion to Postbank, they send portions to other banks where the beneficiaries receive. My belief is that at the base, that database has got integrity such that there's no ghost recipients. But because that's the source, if you have ghosts there, they're going to be paid. So hopefully that is under control. But once Postbank receives their portion of the file, they should just ensure that they credit the right beneficiary. And the other banks, when they receive their portion, they should credit the right beneficiary. I hope with that, the ghosts could be contained. But if there's concerns of ghosts, I think SASSA is doing a good job to legitimate and should still continue to receive that. But I think they can talk to that. I think I might flout things if I try and talk about ghosts. And then the call for integration of government agencies, this is key. And it spoke to Postbank as a future state bank. Where does the SARB assist Postbank? SARB working to regularize matters, how does it assist? Ensuring the vulnerable have access to services. And this is where it comes in. So we believe that we need to support national agendas within our mandate. And in whatever decisions are taken within the law and everything, we should support the national agenda as a regulator. And any call that is taken, we should make an effort to support that. And in that, we cannot sort of run ahead of things and interfere in other agencies' mandates. They must come forward and be supported. But I'm going to mention this, that is an overriding question that related to our people accessing services. The SARB has launched a project that we call the Payment Ecosystem Modernization. At the heart of that program is to make a meaningful impact on financial inclusion and ensuring that our public access digital services if they want and access cash when they want. They should not be forced into cash because they don't have access to services. And in this respect, honorable members may be aware that recently, as recently as last week, I think, the SARB is buying BankSafe, which is the retail payments operator for South Africa, mainly owned by the big four banks. The SARB is buying that entity to turn it into a national payment utility. And in that utility, we're going to embed services that would make it much easier for parties like Postbank or even SASSA, if the policy position could be that SASSA pays grants direct to the participants. We must lay a national payment utility that can support that. So we got the Competition Commission approval. Remember then when we buy these entities and is taking it from the private sector, they may launch court cases. So we went to the Competition Commission. We've got approval last week, I think, and the Competitions Commission has recommended to the Competitions Tribunal to approve this transaction, for the SARB to buy as private sector entity and turn it into a national utility so that we can have services reach our people. So we call this the payment ecosystem modernization. There's background about what we wanting to do there. There's 7 initiatives that we want to do as part of this national utility. Quite exciting. It's a program that will run. The first phases, I think, will start rolling out from 2027, 2028, 2029. It starts with the digital financial identity. It starts with the counterparty verification. If I'm paying you today, I just load you on my internet banking, and some of the banks would say, is this the person that you really want to pay? So that you verify the other party. But it's more about even money laundering and other things to safeguard our system. We want an effective retail offering where grant recipients do not necessarily need to receive grants in their bank account. They can have digital wallets, and they can receive them in those digital wallets, even at non-banks. But that needs to be safe. We need to have an embedded fraud management system in the national payment system so that we can mitigate fraud and address the issues you know about the grey listing. There's issues there. The digital stores of value, exciting work, but we are trading carefully. And here, please, this is at its infancy, and some of the positions maybe we don't support, but where people talk about stores of value to say, I want to be paid in fiat. Some of them could say, I want to be paid in Bitcoin and all that. I mean, these are crazy stuff. There's various stores of value that you could be paid in. And then there's replacement of our core settlement systems in the SARB, as well as consumer education and awareness interventions. This is part of a program that we call the Payment Ecosystem Modernization that is aiming to ensure that there's reach in services. And parties like SASSA, Postbank can leverage this national utility when realized and put in place. I just thought, let me share, because it was said, what is the SARB doing about all these matters? And how is SARB assisting? And yes. Now, the black card query, that there's no name on the card. We believe on cards, according to standards, the first thing is the branding. And with the branding, we say, on the card, it must be known who issued that card, so that if there's a problem, you can go to that party. That's the branding part. The second then should be the identification mark. And the question we are getting here is that there's cards without names. You don't know who they belong to and all that. Can I defer it to Postbank to respond to? I think they will do a good job rather than me. And then the gold cards still safe. The SARB is penalizing the cards. We're not penalizing the cards. We're suspending the use of the key that we believe is compromised. But there's a key that can issue cards. If a beneficiary today lose their card and they need it replaced, it will be issued because there's a key, but it will not be issued as a gold card because that key has been suspended. So that's the response there. The long queues in terms of swap out of cards, there I'm saying we could be pragmatic with the assisting the Postbank to say, how can we reach those people and make it easier for them so that they're not going into crowded spaces, they don't have to spend too much money to go and swap out the card. And then I spoke about the card expiry. What are the implications of the gold cards? I think I indicated that they still work, those that are in the hands of the beneficiaries, but if for some reason something happens to them, they can be replaced with a gold card. Cost of the last variation, forced closure. Yeah, the forced closure, I mean, this I think you would not be happy with. If the Postbank just said to force the swap out, they can just indicate that all those cards stop working. Then you're forcing the people to come and swap it out. That might not go well with you because, especially as Minister indicated, that would impact the accessibility of their mandate to those funds and the dignity and all those aspects. But as a draconian, you could just say, we stop them to work. And then because they can't get the money, they will come. Is that an option that the committee can have opinion on? Some of the cars does not work some days. I'll just indicate our position. And it will affect Postbank, but it may affect Standard Bank and all the other banks, that you hear one day that a bank system is down and people can't access ATMs or money or something. We intervene, but behind the scenes, and we work with that party to fix that problem. That problem may befall Postbank, that for some reason, due to system issues, on some day there's a glitch. We going to, behind the scene, as the regulator, work with that party to resolve that matter in the interest of ensuring that the people are served. Access points, I think I spoke to design systems that, yes, we need parties to design systems that are not exposed to fraud. Yeah, so SASSA, as I indicated, we do not regulate, but we view as a very key stakeholder in the NPS. It fills a certain role that supports the vulnerable. Although we do not regulate them, we interact with them on an ongoing basis. There's a call from them to say, how can they be assisted? And I believe as part of the payment ecosystem modernization engagement can happen. I'm also aware that the presidency is having a program about digital public infrastructure. And one aspect in there is relating to payments, government to person payments, and those interventions probably could assist SASSA. And where the SARB can assist, I think the SARB will take its role to ensure that it assists. Financial implications of, okay, and then there's 400 plus cards that are to be replaced. Verification that there's no ghosts, I think I spoke to, and compliance implications for Postbank, yes. Where Postbank has got internal processes issues, it is our view that they have auditors, both internal and outside, and their compliance function. I think the executive will be taken to task to do the right thing to comply. And from our regulatory perspective, where they flout regulatory provisions, we intervene as the SARB. But we believe it's got its own internal processes that manages its operations. Okay, and I think lastly there was mention of a possible court challenge between SASSA and Postbank that we cannot be able to speak to. Chair, the only thing that maybe we need to wrap up with is high level on the conditions, and I see we are being assisted, as well as the timeline of this fourth variation notice. And perhaps on top of that, maybe the question is going to be whether the SARB believes that timeline will be met. And with interventions, we believe that it will be met, and that's why we issued it. And we will call for some of the change or the interventions for that to be realized. So my colleagues, thanks very much, managed to get the variation notice up. Just go to the conditions, and Sean, should I think it's monotonous. Should I continue talking about it, or do you want to talk to it? So that the voice can be different, the members can be brought.
Thanks, Tim, and thank you, Chair. So I think there's 6 conditions in the variation notice, and one Tim spoke to quite a bit about taking on new business, which is again in the variation notice. But you'll see the first one is around key management processes for future Postbank cards and bank identification numbers. That's the PIN numbers. So it's putting processes in place, that the Postbank puts processes in place to allow for the issuance of new cards. In those conditions, it includes appointing.
My apologies, Chair, for disrupting. I just want to hear whether I'll get this, because from the screen we can't see. Are we going to get the post? I think this is more important for us. Are we going to get the copy? You can show
We'll make a copy available as well, but I can provide them with
Thank you
a
very
copy if you want to read
for
some.
record people.
Yeah. But we will provide the committee with a copy of the variation notice. So this condition also includes things like the Postbank having to appoint an independent auditor with the approval of the Reserve Bank. The Postbank has approached the Reserve Bank with a name of an auditor. We have given our blessing in that regard. Whether the contract has been concluded or not, the Postbank will be able to provide further clarity on that. The second one is, and Mr. Masela spoke about this as well, is issuing a new key or new keys. So before new cards can be issued, new secure keys have to be generated by Postbank, which will then allow them to issue the new Postbank Black Card 2. And with that, then they can start replacing the existing gold cards that are in the market, as well as the current Postbank Black Card 1. The third condition is ring fencing the existing Postbank Black Cards at Black Cards 1. So keeping those, there will be no new Black Card 1s being issued. All new cards will be Postbank Black Card 2 that will be issued. But for now, these need to be kept ring fenced and separate from the current gold cards, and then, of course, the new Postbank Black Card 2. The fourth condition is existing SASSA gold cards. They also need to be ring fenced and then phased out. The only time that we would allow a SASSA gold card, a current SASSA gold card, to be replaced with this the Postbank Black Card 1 is if the card is lost or stolen and the grant beneficiary requires a card urgently and the Postbank Black Card 2 has not yet been issued. That is the only time. So either a damaged card or a card that has been lost or stolen. Right, the fifth condition, I spoke to it earlier, it's just no new business offerings as far as it relates to Postbank as a designated clearing system participant. When it comes to any other business that the Postbank may be involved in, insurance, that type of thing, that is for them to decide. But as far as it relates to their role as a designated clearing system participant, they may not take on new business until such time as the gold cards and the Postbank Black 1 cards have been replaced with the new Postbank Black Card 2. And then finally, monitoring and designation of the variation notices. So there is a requirement from Postbank to provide regular feedback to the South African Reserve Bank as to the progress being made, if there is any situation where they're running into trouble with issuing the cards, etc. But there is regular feedback that has to be provided. The validity of this variation notice is 15 months. So Postbank has 15 months in which to meet the conditions of this variation notice, and that's effective from the date of gazetting of the variation notice, which was Friday. So that takes them to November 2026. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Before you go, Mr. Masela, off the podium, I mean, please will you go back to the optimization, the
ecosystem model?
Yes, like the actual effective date. When is it going to be effective from? Rolled out. I missed that. We were busy trying to get someone to come and do the presentation.
Thanks very much, and this is very important because maybe the ecosystem modernization will be realized through this acquisition of BankServe as a national public utility. Secondly, through the interventions that we need to bring from a regulatory perspective, for instance, to allow non-banks to issue wallet services that will bring competition to the banks because they are dominant and bring the non-banks. First, on the regulatory changes that will bring this competition and allow non-banks to issue wallet services, we went into a consultation process on the regulatory framework, I think 2 months ago. We received comments. we are embedding it, and it is our view that we should implement the regulatory changes that would require non-banks to enter the space and offer wallet services without partnering with with banks that are their competitors in the second half of this year. That regulatory framework needs to be sort of passed and implemented. Members would be aware that we are changing the NPS Act, but because that is in the realm of parliamentary processes, we don't have control. So we're doing this within the current law, and we want to realize that in the second half of this year. So which we have started. So this probably should be something that we can conclude by December at the latest, the regulatory side. Once the regulatory side is done, you need the systems of how these non-banks can connect. And it was our view that we should open the system to a pilot of some big non-banks. I mean, here, I don't want to speak about parties. You are aware about the big telcos, let's say. They may enter the space, the MTNs, the Vodacoms. Some of the big retailers would like to enter the space as non-banks that would offer wallet services. But I want to caution, if, for instance, ShopRite wants to enter this space and offer me a wallet, I should be able to buy at Pick and Pay with that wallet. I should be able to buy at Woolworths. I should be able to buy at other. It shouldn't be closed loop, because if it's closed loop, they issue me a wallet I can only buy at ShopRite. We don't want that. It should be interoperable, that with that wallet I can buy anywhere, something like that. So the regulatory framework will be put in place. The NPU, National Public Utility, that we're saying we are putting in place as part of the PAM, should support that, so that even non-banks that don't have too much capital to enter can be assisted by the NPU to enter that space. Our concern being safety and efficiency. We don't want risk to be introduced, but we want parties to be provided with access to services. Then the digital financial ID, we're working with both Home Affairs and CIPRO, because you know in transacting, we as individuals are registered at Home Affairs, the entities are registered at CIPRO, and both these transact. And how do we forge it forward into a financial ID? We did a pilot in February this year. We have appointed service providers to implement this financial digital ID in the national payment utility. And it would have the verification of the counterparties to avoid fraud and money laundering. Then the system called PaySharp, honorable members could be aware that we have launched PaySharp. It doesn't have the use cases that we believe the public need. Today, when you buy at the store, you buy with a card. But if you have a PaySharp wallet, you could get to a store and say, I want to pay with my wallet. And there should be mechanisms for you to do that, so that you're not only forced to card. Stores of value issue then comes into the equation. That's one element. The fraud management capability that we want to build into this is informed by the fact that we say there shouldn't be competition on fraud. You'll hear the big banks saying, my fraud is better than yours. But I'm saying, everybody does not want fraudsters in the system. Why don't we hold hands to build a system that keeps the fraudsters outside and not compete on fraud? So that's why in this NPU, there's going to be a fraud management capability, as well as business intelligence information about what is happening in the economy. Then we're replacing our RTGS systems. We'll solve, for now, the settlement asset is fiat currency, rand. Do we need to have other stores of value like Bitcoin? Do we need stable coins? You'll hear about many other things. And how could they be embedded? And then we need an effective consumer education and awareness, so that if we offer services, the consumers should know about those services, and they should know about the measures that have been put in place to ensure those services. So those are the 7 puzzles of the payment ecosystem modernization. And I said the digital financial ID will hopefully be implemented implemented sooner, and it will go with the eKYC. PaySharp is already in place. We are embedding the use cases like paying with, I mean, I don't want to be technical. You hear about quick response code, the QR codes that you can use to pay and all that. All those aspects are embedded, supported by the regulatory changes that allows non-banks to come in, that I said should be realized in the second half of the year. And all those would advance some of the aspects. The RTGS renewal, which is the settlement system at the SARB, I think would be one of those that will take the longest. Probably it will be implemented in 2028. This is the core of the system that the Reserve Bank runs for money to move from one bank to the other. The current system is working, but we would like to replace it with a new generation system that will take the longest, maybe 2028, 2029. I'm leaving the SARB, so I'm leaving it to those that are there to ensure that it happens. So, Chair, I hope you touched on those.
Thank you so much, Mr. Masela and your colleague for the presentation. It does not look like you are off the hook yet. And I just need to apologize to Postbank time-wise, because obviously according to the agenda, you should be presenting by now. This whole thing should have ended at 11:30. And so I do appreciate the fact that we do need to have as much information as possible today. So if you could please just, understand. So I will take the hand of the Honourable Minister, the hand of, the Honourable Minister, and that will be followed by the Honourable Abrams. Is your hand up, Makhato? Oh, sorry. And then the Honourable, I'll just do a ladies first now. The Honourable Mare, and then lastly, but most probably not least, the Honourable Reverend. Over to you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Tell Honourable Mfundis we are going to have a women's year. You must keep it cool.
Yes, calm down.
Yeah, calm down a bit. Thank you very much, Chair. I really want to appreciate the information that you received from Reserve Bank today. Quite assisting. However, Chair, I must say I wish I would have been aware of their intervention capabilities on the day where our clients were receiving Postbank black cards for the first time. I wish I was aware, because that's the day I don't want to think that that was the worst day of my life. I wish there was also a place where you can refer people when they have these frustrations. To say, go there, you will be assisted. Chair, I am unfortunately still worried, but give it to Reserve Bank, that this time they will be able to monitor the process of the implementation with the 15 months that they've given. So that, Chair, we don't get into where we were on the day that I said I don't want to even remember. Because from where I'm seated, unfortunately, they must please forgive me. I suspect that the monitoring was not as sharp as it was supposed to be. Hence the chaos we got involved into. And Chair, again, I hear your guest saying they are referring people, they must go and do it with community halls. Is that a proposal? Or is it something that is taking place at the present moment? Remember, Chair, we can't behave like we did not experience a problem. And it was in this committee where we were all assured that Postbank, our dear partners, were doing everything to avoid what became the reality anyway. The story of community halls, schools, and everything else was made mention of in this committee. And all chair did not work. It did not work. And we are now appealing to Reserve Bank to really put up their strategy such that we don't get involved with that, because they more than once indicated that that is SASSA's responsibility when there are financial education and so on. I accept that, Chair, with a lot of integrity. However, I really want to emphasize that the Reserve Bank can play its game and its responsibility more sharper than it is the case now. That's my humble plea, Chair. So that with what they are saying is in the pipeline, is being thought of, is being processed, will eventually work to avoid what we know where we are seated, all of us. And get to realize that if it doesn't happen, it creates once again a stigma to SASSA. Not to Reserve Bank, not to Postbank, but to SASSA here again. And Chair, majority of time, it's not SASSA's responsibility. It's these partners that you are here with, majority of time. I really want to thank the FRB and say, Chair, if they might allow us to have those interactions in between directly, so that we can avoid, as SASSA, who is responsible for implementation of SASSA Act, we could be able to plan accordingly, having been taken through on what is coming our way. But also we think maybe we should, Chair, maybe start think through if we can assist us about the verification of the plus minus 430 something thousand. Maybe you do have to have that. I hear they say they might not be, they should, they are not supposed, they might not ghost and so on. We take that. But maybe we should, as the people who take responsibility at the end, we should go and employ other strategy just to avoid what is not, we are all not sure of. So that will be my parting short, Chair, and really thank you for allowing us to be part of this meeting. And I see Reserve Bank and what you to say would be allowed to have interaction outside us so that we can get to understand their mandate and share with them our frustrations sometimes so that they can walk us through on how best, working with them where it's possible, we can assist in that regard. However, everything else, Chair, is fine. Although I did not understand gold card, black card 1, black card 2. I did not understand. I want to assure you. So I will not be able, honorable members, to articulate it. Maybe I need more information and be lectured more for me to understand. To an ordinary, those women and men, elder people who marched Honorable Abrams last week, how would I explain to them the gold, the black 1, and the black 2? I wish you could, so that we get out of the sometimes perception when we cannot articulate what's supposed to be expected. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Reserve Bank.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Abrams.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, there were just 2 or 3 original questions that weren't answered, but I'll facilitate that in writing via the committee secretary, not to hold up the meeting any further. But just 2 things that's come out from this discussion. And firstly, thank you to the Reserve Bank for being here. Some of us has been waiting since the previous term to have the South African Reserve Bank come to our committee to explain these important things, and it's been incredibly useful to hear it from a different voice. The Minister indicated that they've applied to National Treasury for a special project within SASSA. Maybe the Minister or the SASSA CEO can just briefly touch on what is this new special project. Because if there is something like this new national payment utility, and it's hopefully coming to us as soon as December almost, I mean, is an entity like SASSA, was this the first time they've been hearing about this utility, or have they heard about it before? And if so, could this then be an added solution to SASSA's payment situation? And then the main question is, will this national payment utility be a free service to SASSA, for example, and to other government departments? Or will there be a charge on this new utility? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Abrams.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Honourable Abrams is indicating that she has sent a written question and will respond to that question fully, because this was outside of what we are discussing today, but it was to fast-track the fact that out of the new systems that were introduced, we wanted to inject a little bit of agility, so that by the end of financial year, we must have been able to cover a huge ground insofar as that system is concerned. Avoiding of paying ghost, and avoiding paying non-registered or wrongly registered foreigners. So that was the essence of this, Chair. Thank you very much. But we'll respond to the question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, for that clarity. The Honourable Murray.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to understand this thing. I need some clarity on this thing, is that they have discussed now the Black Card 1 and the Black Card 2. And as far as we know as SASSA, the contract between SASSA and Postbank is coming to an end in September, no? Are the Reserve Bank saying that this contract is going to continue and we're going to sit with the same problems that we had because there's another Black Card number 2 coming out? What are they exactly saying? Because in the beginning they said that even though the contract is coming to an end, that was last week in the meeting, that people will still receive their money. People don't have to panic. There's no other service provider. So is this the only service provider they're going to go to? Are we going to have the same problems because there's no office, no facilities, no nothing? What are they saying? Because the way that the Reserve Bank is talking is like they made up their mind that the contract is continuing with Postbank. Bank, yes. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Murray. Honourable Reverend.
Thank you, Chair. It is just about the payment model. Yes, I just wanted to know that as it is a wallet, it comes with the app. Does it come with a USSD maybe for those people who do not have the new phones? And then also, for example, the ecosystem, will it work in an environment like a church? Just wanted to know in the space if it will work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honourable Rev. I had to laugh there when I'm hearing that now reverends want to commercialize churches. But those are the questions, Mr. Masela and the other gentleman. If you could please just respond to them, please.
Thanks very much, Chair, and valid questions. It's just that I was going to start with the minister's questions, but
she went out. Okay. Should I skip her questions?
For
maybe
now,
start
so
with
that
the
she's
others
here.
and then yes,
Yeah.
so that she's back.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start off with the questions that relate to the PEM, payment system ecosystem modernization, and the national payment utility. And the first question maybe was about whether when we launch this, would it be a free service? I don't think so, and I'll premise this in this way to say the South African Reserve Bank today runs the settlement system for the country, and that system, capital for implementing the system is spent by the Reserve Bank as a national good. But the costs of running the system is recovered from transactions that are processed on that system. And I'm going to give you a typical example that is closer to what we're talking about here. The settlement system settles quite a high amount because it settles the high value transactions. It goes to like 240 billion a day in terms of what is settled, and per month is in trillions, but the volume of transactions are fewer because you could find that one transaction is maybe 100 million, because in our terms, any transaction of 5 million is low value. And we only consider high value to be about 5 million. So the low value can go into clearing, and the high value must come directly to the SARB. So we recover the costs based on transaction fees. But let me give you a flavor of what is happening with the electronic funds transfer system and the fee that you and I pay to BankServe, that is still a private-owned entity. An EFT transaction, for instance, is 14 cents, the fee to process it. But then you find that when it gets into the bank with their value-added services, they add other costs and they charge. But the NPU will charge maybe around similar figures to recover the costs. But the reason why it's 14 cents, it processes millions of transactions. And when you multiply it with 14 cents, it's able to cover the fees. So the NPU is going to charge transaction processing fees, and our expectation is that at the moment, one of the objectives that we want to achieve, transactions that you do in cash, in a physical cash in the wallet, we hope you'll have a digital wallet and you don't have to do them in cash. They will happen electronically. For as long as I can go to the rural area and I could find that I can do digital transactions, that will increase the volume. And in our world, when the volume increases, that 14 cents must come down because we're not making profit. We're recovering the costs. So if the volume goes up, the per item fee must come down. So there's going to be a fee. I just wanted to clarify that. Then there was a question about the contract between SASSA and Postbank, and by us issuing this variation notice, are we saying that the contract between SASSA and Postbank should be extended? My response to that would be, today, a beneficiary may decide to receive their grant at Postbank, well, at Standard Bank, just as an example, and they move their grant there. If the contract between SASSA and Postbank came to an end, and the beneficiary is comfortable receiving the grant at Postbank, it's similar to a beneficiary wanting to receive at FNB or at Nedbank. That's their choice. But I think the impact that that would bring is if by receiving grant at Postbank, you get free transactions because of the contract that exists between SASSA and Postbank. If that contract fell away, it could be possible that the beneficiary that was receiving free services now starts paying. I don't know what is in their agreement, but that's the implications. But my view is that if I was a beneficiary and comfortable with Postbank, I will remain with Postbank regardless of whether there's an agreement or not. That would be my take on it. The SARB is not saying, please continue the agreement. Even if the agreement came to an end, but a beneficiary wants to receive from Postbank, we believe they should be allowed to do that. But as I say, there could be implications if some transactions were free because of the agreement and the agreement fell away, they could start paying. I don't know. Maybe those things could emerge. Now, the question that came from wallets, digital wallets that we're talking about, being restricted to smartphones or also being able to be used in feature phones through USSD. We need to do that. We need to ensure that we're not forcing parties to buy a smartphone for them to transact, but we need to ensure that the capability covers everybody. And the phone should just be an instrument that you use to, so the restriction shouldn't be there. And lastly, the fact that the phone wallet can be used in church, I believe that should be true. Well, my view is that if you already have a point of sale in the church, or you are allowing for a QR code to put through an account, the new mechanism should be enabled, because all you need to do as a church, you need to have an acquiring arrangement, and then people should be able to do that. I believe we should, because I heard that somebody was saying that, and sorry, just on a lighter note, we're working with an entity sponsored by the Swiss, where we have a tips program, where we're saying that a car guard or somebody, when you park and you want to tip them, if you don't have cash, sometimes you're not able to tip them. We want them to have a QR code so that you can tip them electronically and they can get that tip. So that program is underway to try and say people that would otherwise be excluded from earning something are enabled. This is a program that we're running in Hammanskraal and Tembisa, supported by the Swiss. And when successful, we'll roll it out broader, and it's got other interventions. I don't want to bore you, Chair. So I'll pause here, but I have a number of questions that I wanted to touch on that were raised by the Minister. I don't know how I'll hold them.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Masela. I believe the Minister will get hold of the responses one way or the other, because I mean, I don't know how we can answer her questions when she's not here. But sorry. But I just wanted to go into how we go on going forward now. There was a mention earlier on of the taking to court. One, I think it's Postbank, taking SASSA to court. And I used to be told that when matters are before courts, they cannot be discussed. Now, I know that Postbank is not coming here to talk about the master service agreement, if that is what they have taken SASSA to court about. I know that they are here to brief us on the Postbank is here to brief us on the progress that has been made in the implementation of the SARB variations. That is not before the courts, right? Yeah. So if I am given an assurance that what is before the court, which I don't know, I heard earlier on in this meeting. So I was actually, I said to Lindy where I was going to ask that we have a 5-minute break so that I can sort of try and engage with Postbank to ensure that you don't get me into trouble, because I can't, we know that when matters are before the courts, we can't deliberate on them in settings like this. So I need to know that we are going to be, I see that I appreciated that even Mr. Masela did not, the minute he got to that, he was like, I'm not going to say any further. So we need to help one another, that we get the briefing on the progress made in the implementation of the SARB variations. I just need to get an assurance from the honourable, CEO of Postbank that that is what is going to be happening, or should I have gone the route of giving a 5-minute break so that we can discuss the issue? Oh, do you want to go before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Honourable Ramaila.
Thank you very much, because I had posed a question in advance, and in line with what you've just said, I want to withdraw my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Over to you, Mr.
Thank you, Chair, and afternoon to everyone in the room and all protocol observed, and Honourable Minister, Honourable Chair, members of the committee. Chair, we believe that our presentation should not have any issues, if perhaps someone's understanding the question. The presentation that we've pulled together should have no legal implications and merit. But I think if we should receive a question that seems to be sensitive, we will address it at the time. But our presentation should be good enough to engage on.
And also, I've just been very validly advised here that maybe I see the minister is not returning, and I would like to trust the DG, the CEOs, there are very capable people here that can take this message forward to the minister, and then the portfolio committee also gets to benefit from the responses to the minister's questions. If you don't mind, Mr. Masela, if you can just go ahead and answer those questions.
I think, honourable members, before the Postbank takes the floor, I'm going to quickly apply myself to the questions that the minister answered. I think the first call from the minister, if I got the question right, was that sometimes SASSA is not kept informed on some of the aspects, and her call was that how can SASSA be informed on some of the aspects that are happening? And I will tag on to this question, a question because I'm not aware, to say that was SASSA aware of the payment ecosystem modernization? We regularly have update sessions, I think every month or every 2 months, where the broad public and stakeholders are invited. The last one we had, I think, was 2 weeks ago, and the presentations are on the SARB website about progress that we're making on the 7 pieces of the puzzle that I just spoke to, and what is ahead and where we're going. That information is on the SARB website, open to everybody, but stakeholders are invited. I'm not sure whether SASSA is excluded. I would hope they do. Sean?
Sorry, Mr. Masela. So we've had an introductory meeting with SASSA. We're in a transition phase where Mr. Masela is leaving and Dr. Ishmael is coming in. So Mr. Masela was not in the meeting. We met with the acting CEO of SASSA as well as his team to introduce them to the concepts around PEM, and we are going to be having further discussions with them going forward. Thanks.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was a call. And now I'm going to tag on this one.
Your mic is off, sir.
I'm going to tag on this one and request Postbank to also opine on this, because there's a call for the SARB to really ensure effective interaction with SASSA. And as Sean indicates, there had been a session, and we, as best, do this But we are very careful when we do this, that we shouldn't be interfering in the relationship between SASSA and Postbank. By us, we are the regulator of Postbank as a designated participant. We do not regulate SASSA, but we see them as a key stakeholder for distribution of benefits. In our engagement, we try and be careful that we don't interfere in the relationship between the parties. I just want to put that right. And it's a fine line, because we may say something and be told that you shouldn't have said that. We should have told them, and we shouldn't find ourselves in that space. So there's a question here about proposal of how to reach the beneficiaries, and indication was that the discussion of proposals of leveraging community walls was discussed and did not work. We're using these as examples, but we say, we as the SARB would like to stand ready to support any intervention. If there's ideas of how we could best do that, we would weigh in and support. Unfortunately, it won't be us coming with solutions and imposing it on the parties, but we can assist as to how we can make things better. But I think the minister raises frustration to say the SARB extends, the deadline is not met. I was hoping in my sketching of why the first variation was extended due to moratorium of not hiring staff, moratorium of not onboarding service providers, I thought we issued number 2 thinking that if Postbank wanted to do something and they were not allowed to do that, maybe they won't meet the deadline. Variation number 2, the indication was that the moratorium to onboard service providers was removed late, and they didn't have time to do that. We can't want them to flout the Public Finance Management Act and do things outside. Perhaps that's a valid reason. Then the third, we have the 400, I think that's those that are remaining, that are not coming forward or have not come forward, and there was a contractual dispute between the technical service provider and the Postbank that needed to be bedded down for things to happen. If it was not bedded down, what we could have done is to pull the plug and say the gold cast stopped to work. We don't think it's a responsible position to take. We feel that we should accommodate that for as long as the key issue that we're concerned about is under control. So that's in essence saying that we keep on extending, but we need the wisdom of everybody as to what mechanisms can be brought. And I told you about the draconian one, to say you just say the gold card stopped to work, and then you're forcing them to come forward. Is it a responsible position to take? And would it be acceptable? Is those kind of measures, and if perhaps that's the last resort, we can engage the Postbank, but let me just tell the honorable members, in the payment system, we don't want to invoke measures like that, where you cause something not to work, to do something, you try and do something, because we don't think it's a good practice. I mean, the Postbank knows they can stop the bank identification number bin where those cards are all there. They can just cause it to stop working. Then those cards will stop working. And then you would have forced the parties to come. But just imagine the destitute at the end of the month, they don't have any cent, and they go, and their card is not working because you're forcing them to come forward. Does that have dignity? The honorable members support that. So it's those kind of things. And then the verification of ghosts. We believe that the pay file of SASSA is somewhat clean. They can say if they still suspect some ghosts, because that's the source where you say money should go in here. And some cleanup campaigns. I believe SASSA is running as an organization with integrity. They internalize what measures of verification could be put into place. And now, the explanation of the gold cards, black card 1, black card 2. we indicating that there was fraud perpetrated when the key of gold card was active. It has been suspended, but we want the cards in the hands of the beneficiaries to continue to work. When we come to black card, our view is that the beneficiary doesn't need to know about black card 1 and black card 2, because there you're managing the integrity of the keys. I mean, I'm saying, honorable members, when you go to ShopRite or to Woolworths and you tap your card or you put the PIN and things work, you don't need to know what happens behind the scenes. It's our problem as the national payment system and its community to solve that. All you care about is that your card should work and only valid transactions should happen. And that needs to happen. What happens behind is somebody else's problem, and we should ensure that that works. Similarly, we're phasing out the gold cards, and we have black card 1 and black card 2, which is where we enhance the keys. The public doesn't need to know that. Ourselves, Postbank, and at least SASSA needs to be comforted to say this works and whatever, because SASSA is a key client which has got clients being beneficiaries behind. There shouldn't be confusion to beneficiaries. Today, when a beneficiary loses their gold card, when they come, they say, I lost my card, they are verified. They're given a black card. And all they care about is when they leave, it must work. And their balance should still be there. And if we ensure that, in all honesty, we believe that we have done our job. We don't want to confuse the public to say, do you have a gold or black card 1 or black card 2? That's our problem to solve. And I think Postbank appreciates and understands that, working with the regulator, and of course, keeping SASSA in the loop. We should avoid unnecessary detail. Now, with the card system, you always work when ensuring that you keep the integrity in place by ensuring that you improve and manage the keys. And that's what the variation notice that we have just issued on the 29th talks about. And what we have put in there, we have discussed with Postbank and agreed on the process going forward. Perhaps, if I may guide, but Postbank must weigh in on that, the detail of black card 1, black card 2, and all that should not go to the public. We should say the Postbank will give you a card, and it will work, and we will safeguard the money that is in there. So, well, the Postbank must say they will safeguard the money that is in there, and we as the regulator should be comfortable and in agreement with Postbank that they have all the measures in place. I think, Chair, those were the questions. The Minister wanted to understand gold card issued with a compromise key that has been set aside, so no new cards can be issued with that. Black card 1, issued with a key, those cohort of cards will continue to work. What we have agreed with Postbank is that they will continue to work to their expiry. And I don't know what expiry have been set on those cards. As they expire, if a new key is issued, that new key is going to be used to issue cards. And that we term black card cohort 2. But for the honorable members' consumption and the public, you should question us as to whether we have thought through all the measures that we're putting in place, avoiding inconvenience and confusion, and managing it so that it works. And if we do, from a regulatory perspective, the bulk is done by Postbank, then the system is in good shape. I'll pause there, Chair. I think we addressed everything. Did I leave anything short?
Thank you so much, Mr. Masela, for that comprehensive presentation and responses to the questions that were posed by the Honourable Minister and by the Honourable members that they posed. And I think we shall stop here as far as the South African Reserve Bank is concerned. and extend our huge gratitude for you coming through and for the presentation and for accommodating all the questions, because we have to leave here and go to the communities, to our constituencies. We need to be comfortable that we explain what is going on. I am not going to talk about card 1 or 2 or any. I'm just going to talk about the availability of the grants when they are being paid, and the fact that if a person's card is lost or stolen, they must go and get it reissued. And that is all I'm going to leave it to, because I'm like the Honorable Minister, I get very confused very quickly. So thank you so much. I don't know if the honorable members want 2 seconds to go to the bathroom and back. And then if you are with us for that time, please, because I still need to have a very short word with the honorable CEO, and then we come back. Please, let's not take forever. 5 minutes. So if we come back here at 12:45, I'm just rounding it to 12:45.
Yes, I'm based in Parliament. All them.
Is it live?
No, it's pre-recorded, but it's recorded to them.
Anyway, you don't need to.
No, I don't want people to pronounce me as Lulama. I want them to say Lula, proper pronunciation.
Lula.
Not Lulama. Because when you say Lulama, you're referring to a male.
Lulama.
Not a female.
Oh, okay. Okay. Lulama.
SASSA.
SASSA 2.
Yes, SASSA 2. SASSA Bok. Amiga. Highlight. I received MNG6. Yes. SASSA Bok. Yes, you'll continue. Okay, sure. Continue recording. Recording there? Yeah, and SASSA, but because of SASSA Bok, this one. Okay, sure. Okay, bye. Welcome to Parliament. Let me start afresh. Welcome to Parliament. The Social Development Department is here before the Portfolio Committee on Social Development. They are about Welcome to Parliament. The Department of Social Development today is appearing before the Portfolio Committee on Social Development. They are discussing the SASSA. No, when you're recording, when you're not live.
Oh, okay, you must.
Welcome to Parliament. The Social Development Department is here in Parliament today, appearing before the Portfolio Committee on Social Development. They are discussing the issue of the SASSA card, but to talk to us about matters that are separate from the SASSA cards, I am joined by the Director General of the department, Nechipale Peter. He's going to talk to us about the latest saga surrounding the department, whereby the Chief Director of Communications, Lumka Oliphant, wrote a message posting it on social networks about her suspension. Welcome to the SABC, sir.
Thank you very much, Lulama and the SABC for interviewing me.
The post on social networks by Lumka Oliphant about her suspension. Talk to us through.
No, thanks very much. Yeah, it is in government and in any organizations, we have got rules and laws as we are entrusted to ensure that we apply consequences management where it's due, and also ensure that people are taken into confidence and also for us to be able to deal with the matter. With regard to Lumka's suspension, remember it's a precautionary suspension for us to be able to investigate the matter further based on the findings that we have, which we have alluded to her to say that we have issues that we need to clarify, that we need to investigate, and for that matter, in any organization, when we have to do the investigation, for you not to interfere with evidence or interfere with people that could be able to be called witnesses, we have to put an official in the precautionary suspension.
She is alleging that the minister spent about 3 million rands on a trip to the US.
The story, we know about the story that she alluded to, which is not even part and parcel of the suspension. We received the story which was published on Sunday Times. We clarify, even before, we clarify that what has been outlined is not exactly as it is, because it was saying an official in the department who spent 1 million, which is not the truth. In terms of the parliamentary question that we requested, that we answered, we did spend money like any other government department to go into New York like others. It is not only social development, it has got other government departments. But in the article you can see that they went deep into social development issue and mixed some numbers, which we have got the right to reply to say how that money was spent. And whether it's due or not due, yes, we spend money, yes, it's true.
If you're saying that her suspension is not related to this matter, what is it about that she's suspended for?
When the outcome of the AGSA audit have identified some challenges within the IJS account, which is where they procure things in the department, it is based on those findings from the AGSA that by law, once there is material irregularities in terms of the findings of the AGA, you will need to investigate each part. It's not the first time. There are other people in the previous year, 14 people that has gone through the same, though differently. So we are dealing with that. That's the only thing that is there. Precautionary suspension for us to be able to investigate the matter. We are not saying she's guilty. We are not saying she's fired. We are saying allow us to investigate this matter, and as part and parcel of what is supposed to be done in this country. There are laws, remember, that we need to stick to. It's based on that only.
Just a clarity, is she suspended by you or by the minister?
By me. The DG of the department has got a responsibility to suspend an official. It's a relationship between an employee and an employer. I'm the employer.
And lastly, DG, she goes on to speak about the minister not having metric.
I don't think I will get into that. It's not really for official to do that. I never checked that. Ministers are appointed by the president on their merit being politician. Remember, ministers don't feel Z83 and whatever. No, it's not something that we can discuss about that. It's too personal and it's something else. For me, as a DG, I look at managing the department and making sure that the department is well managed. We don't go into different issues. With due respect, I think let's really focus on what is the matter that is at hand that we need to deal with, because we don't need to go there.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
That was the DG of Social Development, Netshipale Peter. With that, back to you at the studio.